All right, here we go. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Senior. We have some breaking news to get to on this Wednesday night of August 20th because the San Francisco 49ers have made a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs, the team they have lost Super Bowls to in 2019 and 2023. Let's talk about it. And I just got home from the Chat Sports studios, and I had just recorded a video that now nobody is ever going to see, talking about the possibilities of the 49ers trading for a wide receiver because Demarcus Robinson's suspension is official. It is a 3-game suspension to start the year. They can appeal that, but the NFL is not going to overturn that ruling. And so the Niners are going to be without a really solid player the first 3 games of the year, and that impacts the wide receiver spot. But as you look ahead to week 1, which is going to be a feisty, tough, physical, spirited game on the road against the Seattle Seahawks, Brandon Ayuk going to start the year on PUP likely. You have Jawan Jennings, who still is not practicing and is still dealing with that calf issue. You have Jacob Cowing, who just injured his hamstring again after he had injured that hamstring initially. First day of training camp, running routes against air. Came up lame the other day, felt it. And so you have to imagine he's going to be out for a little while. You saw this 4th-round pick out of Ole Miss, Jordan Watkins, flash with 4.3 speed, ball tracking, ball tracing ability to pick up yards after the catch. And he has that 50-yard long reception in the preseason opener from Mac Jones. Great catch, 50-50, contested, won it. Good throw by Mac Jones to give his receiver a chance. And in that game, after he had played well, did some nice things, did some rookie-like things. Next day, he says, my ankle's a little bit sore. High ankle sprain. You know, he's going to be questionable at the very best for week 1 for the Niners. And so the healthy wideouts on this Niners team going into week 1 as of right now, and available wide receivers with Demarcus Robinson getting suspended more than 16 yards per catch last year, had 5 touchdowns, stepped up when Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp were out. You have Ricky Pearsall as your number 1. You're not sure about Jacob Cowing. You have Russell Gage, who's played very well in training camp. You have Robbie Chosen Anderson and a bunch of other unknowns at the wide receiver spot. Isaiah Hodgins as a potential possibility. And so the Niners needed to make a trade. I had just done a video that now nobody is going to see talking about some trade targets for San Francisco, and they've officially made that move. Before we talk about it, this is why you subscribe to the show. Whenever there's breaking news, regardless of where I am, I'm going to bring you the latest. We're going to do deep dive analysis. We're going to do long form videos like this is a talk show. Love talking Niners. And so when they make a big move like this, whenever there's a development, whenever there's analysis that I want to spit, I use this platform to talk about San Francisco. Hit that subscribe button. Approaching 165,000 subscribers. Lock us in today. So the trade that the Niners were making, right, after I had to rant about the receiver spot, but serves as foundation and context for the move that we discussed happening, which has now come to fruition, which is why for all of the people in the comment section who say, why are you talking about these trade rumors? It's never going to happen. Niners making yet another move here, and they tried to trade for John Mechie on Sunday. Got beat out by the Eagles because the Birds offered a better deal. So the Niners are trading for Chiefs wide receiver Skyy Moore, and this is the move that the Niners make. That is a move where they're not just bringing in a camp body like they've done all throughout training camp. The injuries there are so bad. The depth is so thin. The position is so murky and questionable for week 1 that the Niners just couldn't bring in a camp body like Equinemius St. Brown or Quintez Cephas or Malik Turner. They needed to go out and actually acquire a player. Now they elect to not go with Amari Cooper or Odell Beckham Jr., 2 of the biggest names, Tyler Boyd as a free agent wideout. Gabe Davis visited with Pittsburgh again. They instead go after a young player with draft pedigree, with some ability who can help them as a wide receiver and as a punt returner at a position that is extremely razor thin right now. So we'll talk about Skyy Moore, the player. Kansas City, San Francisco swapping 6th and 7th round picks in 2027 in order to finalize this move. As for Skyy Moore, the player, We are talking about a former second-round pick here who was selected by Kansas City in the 2022 NFL Draft. He played his college football at Western Michigan. He's 5'10", 195 pounds. As a rookie, he certainly had some bright moments with Andy Reid calling and designing the offense and Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football. He played in 16 games that year, 3 starts, 33 targets, 22 catches, 250 yards, 11.4 yards per catch, no touchdowns. But he did give Kansas City some juice on special teams. In the Super Bowl, he had a very nice performance against Philadelphia in Super Bowl 57. That was the 2022 season. He caught a touchdown pass on a very similar route that Andy Reid drew up to Mecole Hardman to beat the Niners, ironically enough, in Super Bowl 58, kind of that man in motion, that little twirl route, faking out the defense with the motion, the shift, but also the route running, and kind of like what is a little bit of a choice route at times where you can cut it inside, go outside to the pylon or to the back corner. But either way, had a pretty good Super Bowl performance against the Eagles in a really big spot. And so he showed some pop there. In 2023, he played 14 games, 8 starts, up from 3, 38 targets, up from 5, 1 fewer catch with 21, 6 fewer receiving yards at 244, and only a touchdown with 11.6 yards per catch. And there are a few reasons why Skyy Moore hasn't really worked out. Really good college career. I'm looking up those numbers right now, where he played Western Michigan and 800 receiving yards as a freshman, 51 grabs. Year 2, injured 2020. Year 3, 2021, 95 catches, nearly 1,300 yards, 13.6 yards per catch, 9 tutties. And he can be used as a gadget guy too, which Kansas City has done a little bit. And so you have to draft, or you have to evaluate in the draft process, I should say, guys like this. And for Andy Reid and Brett Veach, one of the top head coach GM duos in the NFL, they take this player very early in the draft. And those guys are, and that organization, peak of the NFL. So you have to trust their draft development and their draft insight. And so they take Skyy Moore 54th overall in the second round. And while he's had himself some moments, including an 88-yard punt return for a touchdown 4 days ago against the Seattle Seahawks in the preseason, he hasn't really jived with Patrick Mahomes. They haven't had great chemistry. He hasn't been able to find a role in Andy Reid's offense. The statistical output, underwhelming. 43 total catches, 494 yards, and only 1 touchdown. He had no catches in the 2024 regular season. And so he is not in the best graces of Kansas City right now. Only played in 6 games. He had a core muscle injury in 2024 that cut his season short. He's also just been an inconsistent player, not reliable with catching the ball. Dropped a crucial third down pass, I remember, against the Chargers in 2024. That frustrated Brett Veach. He had a notable blunder, too, where he fumbled a kick return against the Saints in 2024. That glorified his struggles. The core muscle injury put him on IR in October of 2024. So that's why he only played 6 games. And even when healthy, though, his snap counts have been low, below 35% of offensive plays. Other players have also risen up in that scheme with Mahomes and Reid. Skyy Moore has not. And so that's something that we're going to have to monitor here, because Kyle Shanahan clearly likes what he can maybe draw up for Skyy Moore. And he's running a different offense than Andy Reid. But we've seen Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, young players make strides for Kansas City, and with Patrick Mahomes, Skyy Moore never did. Even Marquise Brown made some plays. Missed a lot of time last year due to injury, but when he was on the field, pretty solid. And while he is a good special teams player, and he had that 88-yard punt return where he went up along the sideline against Seattle the other night. Really impressive play. His contributions there have also been inconsistent. And there have been errors like fumbles. So like with any second-round pick who's been a bust up to this point, based upon draft pedigree, Skyy Moore has been a disappointment. But you've certainly seen some ability. You've seen some talent. You've seen some potential. He can help you as a punt returner, which was probably going to be Jacob Cowing's role. He can help you as a wide receiver, which right now you need. Now, there are about 100 routes in Kyle Shanahan's playbook. That's why wide receivers take a long time to get acclimated and catch up and learn the offense. The plus that you do have with the player like Skyy Moore is what I mentioned earlier, where you can use him with simplified things and as a gadget guy, which for the wide receiver, in some cases, there's not much you have to do. If you run a bubble screen, faking forward, coming out, you get some receivers and offensive linemen on pull blocks, blocking ahead for you. You catch, you run forward. On a play like an end around, you're taking a handoff and you're trying to get to the edge usually and use that speed, which we've seen from Skyy Moore on special teams. When you're running a crosser, obviously you got to figure out if the defense is playing man or zone. You have to try to get to your spot. Sometimes with pre-snap motion, there are indicators that the defense is in either man or zone if they're trailing and following a wide receiver or a running back. With pre-snap motion, usually an indicator they're playing man, but that can be simplified for Skyy Moore, whether it's against zone or against man, the types of routes he has to run and what his role is going to be running those routes and what's going to be asked of him. But when you're running crossers, it's a pretty simple route. It doesn't require a ton of timing, anticipation, touch, accuracy, like it requires when you're running posts, corners, out routes, even button hooks. And so look out for ways for Kyle Shanahan to incorporate Skyy Moore. And the other thing too, best case scenario, he ends up being a scheme fit for you. You get some production from him, offense, special teams, and you're swapping late round picks. If he doesn't work out, you continue to have issues at wide receiver. You figure it out. You rely on Brock Purdy, who's been having a good training camp, thought he played well in the preseason. You rely on one of the top offensive minds in Kyle Shanahan to scheme guys open. And hopefully at some point you get Jawan Jennings. In the middle portion of the year, you get Brandon Ayuk. Defense, you're going to pick up Malik Mustafa. I almost look at those acquisitions or additions as acquisitions to your football team, because if you're getting impactful players like that about midway through the year, that's a pretty big deal as far as your roster construction, your roster lineup, and what those players are capable of. And so really you're trying to survive for a little while at the wide receiver spot. Skyy Moore should help you survive at the wide receiver spot. You worry about some of the injuries, you worry about the ball security, you worry about the lack of production, but there are moments where you're like, I see something there. And NFL teams, coaches who are confident in themselves, GMs, organizations as a whole, they will always take chances on players like this. And you look at the cream of the crop right now in the NFL, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. The last few years, they have signed more than 50 top 3 round picks. They have acquired, at some point, 7 of the top 51 picks from the 2022 NFL draft. And you look at that team and you say, they're really deep, they're really talented. Well, why do you think they make those moves? To make themselves deep and talented. So when you're bringing in Skyy Moore, ideally, if Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, and Brandon Ayuk are out there healthy, that's your 1-2-3 punch at wide receiver. You have Demarcus Robinson as your 4, Skyy Moore as your 5. Can Jacob Cowing stay healthy? Probably not. Until then, can Russell Gage be that 6 guy? But you don't know when Jennings is coming back. You don't know when Ayuk is coming back. You hope that Ricky Pearsall can stay healthy. So huge question marks at the wide receiver spot for San Francisco here. That's why they're making this move. All right, wanted to hop on the mic, discuss everything. I'm pretty sure I got to everything. Our sponsor, PrizePicks. Get $50 when you play a $5 lineup, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Join the millions of people who have hopped on board, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game, and get signed up with PrizePicks today. 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win big-time money, sometimes up to 2,000 times your cash. You can get your picks in 60 seconds. Makes the games a whole lot more fun. You pick more or less on their stats, and you see if they can go more or less. Which players are you high on? Which players are you low on? You could put some cheddar down on some of those players by going more or less. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that code CLNS. Get $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. The other thing I wanted to touch on with Skyy Moore is the relative athletic score. Teams are starting to value this a little bit more. We were kind of joking about it in the office today because there were a flurry of trades, and we were like, dude, got to get the RAS score in the script. Gives you something to talk about. It does, and teams value this. They value good athletes. So Skyy Moore coming out of college, Western Michigan, kind of got some comps to like Golden Tate. Smaller receivers. I'd say Tate is a little girthier, to use the word that a lot of people like. He's just a wider, thicker, more built body than Skyy Moore, who's a lot more slender, and I'd say is a little bit more twitchy. But Skyy Moore in the pre-draft, coming out of Western Michigan, 7.58 relative athletic score, 5'9", a $195, 15 reps of 225 on the bench. That's not bad for 195 pounds. Vertical 34.5, again, not bad. Good broad jump. You always look for that for kind of short area quickness and burst. His 40-yard dash, 4.41. So he can move. He can scoot. 2.51 20-yard split. 9.96 on the 10-yard split. Those are the grades. But on the 20-yard split, as far as seconds go, 2.51, 1.46 on the 10-yard split. What's weird, the broad, very good. The 40, elite. Bad shuttle and 3-cone. In the red there. And sometimes that's that make the man miss ability in that phone booth. 4.32 on the shuttle, 7.13 on the 3-cone. As far as the grades there, 4.49 and 3.8. Deep into the red. So the RAS score here, a lot of yellow, some green, some red. Good and bad as far as the athlete goes. Skyy Moore to the San Francisco 49ers. Late round pick swap. Niners, Chiefs getting a trade done. We are 18 days away from the season opener. 15 days from the Thursday season opener on the 4th. 18 days until the regular season opener. Niners on the road against Seattle. Niners still 2.5-point favorites, but that game's going to be tough, man. Niners are so banged up. Kyle Shanahan even said today, sometimes I talk so quick, I get so damn excited. Kyle Shanahan talked today and said, we've had so many injuries. We haven't had the training camp that we hoped for and wanted as far as getting reps in. That's not a good sign for the bettors out there. Those are the types of clues that you look for all the gamblers out there. And then from my standpoint, trying to evaluate that game, Seattle looked really good the other night. Niners look good too, but also Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa haven't played all preseason. One drive with the ones. I don't know. Going to be a hard-fought, very difficult game. If they lose, it's not the end of the world, but it's going to be a good one. I think it's one of the best games on that Sunday slate for the real ball knowers out there. Hit that sub button. Be back in the studio tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who watched the earlier show. And thanks to everybody who watched this one. See ya.